I'd like to welcome our expert for today, Prashant Pandey. He's the country manager for India for Right Management. It's a part of the Manpower Group. He doesn't feel the recession, which is great, or even the slower growth that some people in the country are struggling with. And we wanted him to talk to us really about how do you find the right people? What is the importance of this whole space in making sure that you have sustainable businesses going forward? How do you create a sustainable organization? How do you develop the next generation of leaders? High performance teams, dealing with competition. How do you need to think if you have to deal with competition? Is competition anything anymore?
We visit a lot of campuses, right? When you interact with millennials, at times you wonder, I have never been asked a few years back, the questions are, so, it just happened this year itself. One of the guys, we had almost shortlisted him, and then he simply turns around and says, so tell me, why should I join Right Management? And I am wondering, boss, मैं तुमको यहाँ पे नौकरी देने आया हूँ और मतलब I mean it's great, and that's the confidence and that's the clarity with which they operate. They will turn around, I'm here feeling that the guy will be gung-ho that he's getting a job offer from a Fortune 500 group company, and the guy simply turns around and tells me, okay, so tell me, why should I join Right Management? Point is, when we are job givers, we and when we are going to the young generation, our paradigm which is कि हम तुम नौकरी दे रहे हैं तो खुशी से लो ना. That's our paradigm with which we operate. But the point is, the millennials don't think like that. We have seen our parents join in. My father was in Reserve Bank, right? He joined as a GM in Reserve Bank, right? Career banker. He joined Reserve Bank and retired from there. Right, that's the generation that we have seen, and so our paradigm, and I completely, the issue is in our mind. We operate with certain paradigms and we are not able to manage those paradigms for ourselves, and then our challenge starts. Right, and I was doing a similar forum on millennials, and so I asked the entire, so what do you love about working with millennials? So it's a very good decision makers, have a voice of their own, and all that. I said, okay, great. I said, what do you dislike about millennials? And they said, very difficult to get them to agree on something. They always challenge you. I said, now just look at it. You love the decision making, you love when they voice out their opinion. On the other side of the coin, you are saying they challenge you. Now you can't, this is contradictory. You can't have both sides. If you are willing to live with this, this part will come with the territory.
It is inevitable.
It is inevitable. It is inevitable. Now, you have to take the entire cake. You can't have this slice of the cake. The person is the entire cake. You can't have this part of the cake and do away with that part of the cake. If you are wanting an employee who has a voice of his own, be ready to be challenged. No. Right now, it's our inability to manage that which puts us in a quandary. While intrinsically we all understand getting talent is difficult. Right, but what we do at a global level, for the past decade, we have been running this entire survey, which we call the talent shortage survey, right? And I would share some insights from this year's survey, 2017-18 survey with you. This will give us some context in terms of when we say it is difficult to find talent, how difficult, and in what area, and why. And then I would probably lead in terms of, so if we are talking about managing and generating talent, what are some of the strategies that we could use collectively as an organization, right? And what do we watch out for when we are looking at talent? So if you really sit back and imagine what the world would look like 15 years back, it's an interesting thought, and we all should have a point of view. It's not about being right or wrong about that point of view. It is just having a point of view in terms of what the world ecosystem is going to look like 10 years down the line. And what World Economic Forum has done is sort of spoken to global leaders, and this is the point of view of global leaders in terms of what the world is going to look like around purely because of the disruption that technology is bringing, right? Because human age today, if the intersection of technology and human is not as real as it is today. It was never as real as it is today, because if you want, in a technology driven in industry, if you want to have a leadership position, it is only because of human potential that you will be able to get. If it is, technology is not going to drop from the sky. What technology is available to you is mind-boggling, and organization's ability to infer what technology can do to my business model and at what time do I adopt which technology will clearly define my leadership position in there. So technology by itself means nothing unless and until it is coupled with human endeavor, and my ability and humans' ability to comprehend technology and adopt it at the right speed, at the right places in the business model. If these two things we are able to manage, and this is so contextual when we talk about when we talk about talent, and we'll speak about it as we get around, and that's why our ability, and I keep using this phrase called DQ, digital quotient. Actually not. The type of talent and talent, and this is interesting because India is like water everywhere and not a drop to drink. We have enough hands and legs, but do we have talent to do the job for you is a question that we need to ask. So talent is always in context. It's not about having heads, hands, feet and knees. It's always in context. And in that context, will we have surplus of talent? I'm not so sure. And that's why we'll speak about it. So getting into the data very quickly, this year's survey, we covered around 40,000 odd people in 43 all countries. And the idea was in terms of finding out, this is something that we all intrinsically understand in terms of there is difficulty, but how much difficult and where area? So the data will give you, some context to that. How much difficulty are you finding filling roles compared to last year? What skills are the most difficult to find and why? What are you doing to solve talent shortages? So here the data that you are going to see right now is largely global. So just look at this last 10 years data. We are sitting at 2018, 45% of the organizations said they are filling. So there was, look at the trend. It is only over the last few years, it is only growing steeper. 45% of the organizations today globally are saying they are finding difficulty in filling talent. 45% of the organizations. It's huge. India data is slightly more scarier. Look at this. India is sitting at 56%. This is what the data looks like. Japan is one of the most closed economies globally. They are the most closed when it comes to accepting outsiders as workforce internally. Even there now, even Japan, especially in the technology space, have opened up.
But also Japan had a huge gender problem.
It has a huge, it is one of the biggest, it is one of the biggest.
The Prime Minister of Japan launched something called Womenomics.
Correct.
And they took measures to get women back, and the largest percentage growth in the workforce has come from women between 55 and 65 who have returned to the workforce. And added, I think, 3 or 4 percentage points. At least from their correlation to GDP.
Friend, in India, sales representatives are at number 1. The finance and account in India also is remaining at 7. Right? Skilled trades, electrician, welders, most difficult to find. So, and that's why you wonder, why the skilling mission of the government of India is not taking off as strongly as it should, because it's a big problem. Look at the size of the company. Again, India data is slightly different. In India, the medium-sized companies are finding it most difficult. The large companies are slightly better off, because obviously here we are slightly, as a generation, as a culture, we are slightly more sensitive and slightly more attractive to a brand. Right, so the brand pull plays its role probably in India. That's why large companies, established companies, would probably have a slightly their problem in terms of finding talent is slightly better. It's the medium-sized companies are where the challenge is maximum. Look at this. Application requiring human skills, and in India this is much larger when it comes to lack of human skills. The softer skills is much larger over here. Right, even 19% of the respondents globally said that even hard skills is difficult to find. Maximum value, especially in organizations where today you don't have very clear hierarchies. Project teams come together, project teams get dismantled. Right, so problem solving, 54%. Organization, your whole organization skills, 49%. And look in terms of the difficulty in terms of finding. Problem solving skills is number one. Your whole leadership skills in terms of, selling and inspiring people, managing people is 18. These are very difficult skills to find. Alternate workforce, outsourcing as a business model is getting more and more prevalent. In fact, this whole explore alternative workforce was getting up, but the outsourcing model, this came as a surprise to us also, because a lot of organizations are looking at outsourcing work more and more in terms of, so this came as a surprise to us also, but this is the way it is.
And this whole process started with shared services.
Yes.
And somehow shared services missed the bus, and the whole world moved to outsourcing and offshoring very quickly. And I think in the last 3 years there has been a review and a revisiting of shared services versus offshoring and outsourcing.
Yeah.
So lots of companies believe that internal efficiencies, internal knowledge, a lot of it gets lost or doesn't get, there's no synergies left when you outsource that whole problem. So shared services is making a comeback. So I think if you added shared services to this, then maybe the trend is not that different.
The whole thing which we use a word called captives, shared service.
That's
so
right.
Organizations have these captives that they have set up,
which
right?
have made a comeback.
Yeah, which have made a big comeback. In fact, coming back to the ITS example, when we are looking at jobs, alternate jobs for these guys, most of the fungibility is in captives. I don't know whether you would have read, this was a big industry news where it was a news when Airtel did it some 8-10 years back, when they had outsourced their entire customer service to IBM. It was a big industry news because it was something new in the industry at that point. Telecom in India had outsourced their entire customer service for the first time, because that's what ultimately what is a telecom company. It is a technology which is the airwaves, and it is customer service. That's what it is. And they had outsourced it, and it was big news in the industry at that point of time. And interestingly, just last year, Airtel has ended it with IBM. And again, it was a big news. Okay, now this is interesting. Now this is where our conversation would start, and I would now get into a few thoughts in terms of, now looking at talent shortage, obviously build. Now, where do you think organizations would now be? So build, let's understand build, buy, borrow and bridge. Now this is something that we all understand intrinsically. Build is where I invest in terms of my own talent, in terms of going up and, up there. Buy is where I simply go out into the talent market and buy, right? I pay money and buy talent in terms of going. Borrow, it is in terms of looking at communities beyond, looking at those alternate workforce models, right? And bridge, where help people move across within my own organizations, right? How can I make people move across functions? So can I move somebody across functions, and can I do it in a smart way? The buy is by default the easiest solution. I go out, I give it to my HR community, my talent acquisition community, or job description, mere ko ye banda la ke do. Organizations have, again going by my own personal data, have started doing this more and more, especially at a leadership level, because cultural fit is a big thing. It's a big fit. And if you see in your own network, the number of people who are moving across function, traditionally, the intelligence was that the business, the CEO of an organization typically will come from the business side. That intelligence itself is getting challenged. You will find a lot of CHROs and CFOs becoming CEOs of organizations. And that percentage is slowly and steadily only increasing. And this is a classic example of bridging.
Kind of recruiting from engineering colleges or institutes, or even Institute of Architects kind of places. What we find very difficult is to retain them.
Absolutely.
See, they take almost 2.5 years to come full stream.
Correct.
After that, for retaining them, for their, what you told, I agree that the whole smart way of retaining them, engaging them, giving them a career path, that sometimes becomes little difficult.
Yeah. Because
one is whether there will be sufficient opportunity, and secondly, also I think that one point you told about this cross-functional
movement,
like CFOs and all. What we are seeing is that sometimes we are very inclined. As a leadership team, we want that kind of change to happen. but we might not have worked for last 5 years to have that kind of a pool or develop that kind of a skill set. So there is always conflict between the skill set that we are expecting versus what we want to do. So I think that bridging that gap is a very important factor. That yes, I'm inclined, but have I worked on, or have we worked on for certain key people so as to bring them up to the level in last 2 years?
And I'm so happy you're raising this point, because this is a classic case of intent and intelligence not translating into action. The intelligence is there कि भाई हमने इनका इन्वेस्ट किया है टैलेंट को हायर करने में, ये 2-2.5 साल से ज़्यादा हमारे पास टिकना, ये इंटेलिजेंस है. इंटेंट भी है कि भाई कुछ करना है, इसको रिटेन करना है. Is it translating that intent and intelligence into action is where organizations fail.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm sorry, I just want to actually go back to the point that Rajiv made at the beginning of this. Everything that we are talking about is a comparison with the way things have been.
Yeah.
Why are we obsessing with it? There is a way to think about the world and say, you know what, in the future, 2 years to 3 years is what people will stay with you. Now, in a VUCA, what was the reason for retention? That there was so much residual intelligence, wisdom and knowledge in people who were there that year after year, it would make no sense to lose that person, because that what they did in the past is what they were meant to do. In this hyper VUCA world, what we did last year is irrelevant next year anyway. So if a person goes away, I mean, I think there's much more heartburn, and I think because we attach no attrition to good leadership, people like us get really upset when people leave. But I think there is a way to look at the world and say, you know what, guys, so this thing about help people move on, which is much more an empathy thing. Somewhere obsessing workforces that do 15-hour days, and you know, you're constantly on a phone or on a con call, you're so busy you can't take time out, had become the way of the world for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
Why are we not thinking about returning, that the world is coming full circle and the next 25 years are going to be what lives look like 50 years ago? People are home at 5 o'clock, hang out with your children and your families, go trekking, take holidays. Life becomes a much better mix of work and leisure.
Precisely, that's what I was telling, that apart from retention, it has got to do that, are we skilling them? See, if we skill them, wherever they are, after 10 years, they will come to us and shake hand that, boss, you did a good job by skilling me. I am looking more from the perspective that we need to bring their value up so that they are much more employable, they are much more adaptable, and I think also somewhere little human.
The whole issue, I think we need to also segregate into in what industry or sector you are.
Absolutely.
So it cannot be what applies in logistics.
Correct.
Can be applied in real estate.
It has to be in context to your reality.
Now, in real
Completely
estate,
agree.
Where we are, a supply time to the customer to complete the cycle takes the project completion about 3 to 4 years.
Correct.
The customer is much more comfortable whom he has given his first check when the building was under construction, and from the same person if he takes the delivery of the home, and then we have seen third generation buying still from the same person.
Which industry do you represent?
Real estate.
Real estate.
Now I myself is there for 32nd year.
Wow.
And we have peons and seniors for 40 years. So, and the kind of, you know, the customer comfort you buy, why third generation is buying, and he feels so happy that my father has bought from so and so, and now I am buying from so and so, and my son has bought from so and so. So you see the same face. That's how you get the customers. Now logistics, it doesn't matter who is delivering what, but if you go to simply a doctor or a car mechanic, and there's some acquaintances there, makes you much more comfortable.
Correct.
So I think we can't paint with the same brush all the logics.
No, you're right.
We need to definitely segregate which industry you are and then where it is.
Correct.
And
Correct.
as you rightly said, Prashant, that the culture, and somebody says the culture will make a lot of effect that if there is a blend of culture.
Sure, great. So now I want to share with you a very simple framework in terms of when you're looking at talent, in terms of how do you want to identify talent, and this is in context to everything that we are saying. Either you're looking at building talent, either you're looking at buying talent, you're looking at borrowing, or you're looking at building talent. So it's a very simple framework, and this is something that you would want to look at it, and in terms of, so what we are saying is when you're looking at talent, ultimately any person needs to operate around these 3 pillars. Look at the role of any industry, any person in any industry. I need to operate around strategy, execution, and people. What are the strategic questions that a leader really needs to answer? Which new markets do I enter? Do I build? Do I outsource? Should I continue with a certain product? Should I discontinue with a certain product? How do I price my products? These are strategic questions. Execution would be, how do I improve process efficiency in my organization? How do I ensure process compliance? How do I reduce wastage in my organization? These are process related questions that an execution related question that a leader would need to answer. What are the people related questions that a leader would need to answer? How do I motivate people around the vision of the organization? How do I manage conflicts within my organization? How do I build a talent pipeline? A CEO strategy question would be very different from a frontline manager's strategy questions. Are you with me? However, a CEO cannot say that execution is not my baby. But a CEO needs to get the execution done through people. A CEO will not roll up his sleeves and get down into execution himself or herself. Similarly, a lot of CFOs in this room would be the similar reality. These are the 4 P's that you really need to think of. Now, interestingly, performance. Everybody understands. This is ultimately what everybody gets measured on. This is what every organization rewards. Interestingly, performance is historical. Performance is always about the past, but we all know past performance is not a guarantor of future potential. Watch out, look at the performance data, but also look at the potential of that individual in terms of how do you measure the potential.
Correct.
Not that personality is not a statement about my ability or inability to do things. It is my comfort and my choice. If you force that person who's an introvert or extrovert, जो बोलते हैं ना, the idea is कि अगर आप introvert को, if you get him to do things which are against his natural grain, the likelihood it will tire him is that much more higher. And that's why we are saying, watch out for the personality. What is his hardwire? What is his natural thing of doing? And watch out for that data. It's very important. Last is my perception data. एक बोलते हैं ना leadership brand. Perception is what are the experiences. You all have formed perception about me by now. It is natural. Perception is natural. कई बार ये होता है कि ये बंदे को आप मिलते हो मीटिंग बोलते हो यार ये बंदा यार मज़ा आ गया इससे बात करिए बहुत दम है बंदे में. अब जब उसके साथ काम करते बोलता है यार ये तो कुछ कर बातें बड़ी फेंकू है. Exactly. Right. And interestingly, all these are interrelated. Your personality has an impact on your potential. Your personality has an impact on your performance. Your perception has an impact on your performance. And remember, when the perception becomes a perception of your potential, you start getting worried.
This perception is perception amongst whom?
Amongst my ecosystem. All stakeholders. A lot of mature organization will even go external and capture the perception. But that organization, not many organizations in India, they will even talk to customers. But that not many organizations do it. So 360 typically I talk to the boss, to the subordinates, to the peers, and you get that data. What is the experiences that he has given that individual? The point I'm trying to make here is, and this is my last slide, if you get this holistic view on people, the chances that you're betting on the right horses, I'm sorry, people are not animals, we don't have to look at them as, but I'm using that only from a conversational phrase, that you're betting on the right horses is that much more.
Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking Prashant.
Thank you.